Hour 4 begins a journey through a zigzag series of corridors with doors that represent the dynamic zigzag structures of the whole cell's DNA molecule. As described in Hour 3, zDNA exhibits a zigzag backbone, and events in hours 4 through 5 show that the RNA polymerase is plowing straight through the DNA double helix, leaving negatively supercoiled DNA behind it. This is also suggested by the text: when the bark travels, it begins drag straight on, at the coffin text 60. The main corridor is the Rosette Jah, or the Rosette Ta, which has several interpretations due to the diverse meanings of the Egyptian words. The example Ro means mouth or opening. John can mean old God or linen fabric or food offering, with Jah meaning rope or tow line. Tau means holy or sacred gate. Thus, we have interpretations of the word Rosette Jah and Rose Ta ranging from mouth of the far horizon or mouth of the chambers to the opening or passage of dragging. In reference to Osiris, Ogden Goelet Jr. notes the translation: the one purified by your own efflux, against which the name of Rosette Jah was made. With Ro meaning mouth and Set Jah meaning efflux, the name suggests the mouth of the efflux or the rising Osiris, which catalyzes the outflow of phage progeny. Goelet suggests that the most likely translation is place of the dragging. This seems to be a good choice for like a pulse of slow light traveling through a vortex. The sunbark is dragged within the plasma in a fashion similar to the phenomenon that occurs near black holes. Nonetheless, Rosenthal is the sun god's destination for his reunion with Osiris at the 15 BP attachment site on the host chromosome, where the lambda prophage has integrated at the LAC-Z gene. With the SOS response of the cell and the arrival of the sun god's supramolecular complex, the lambda prophage is induced to get out of the cell, and this initiates the excision reaction. In this, our Ra is wearing the horizontal ram horns with the disc, but has no replication fork. As a result of the sun god arriving at the integration site of Rosette Ta, hours 4 through 6 depict several overlapping chemical processes. Number 1, stalled replication fork due to thymine dimer. The DNA repair process is necessary to pass by the dimer. Number 2, site-specific recombination, strand exchange, cleavage, rejoining, reactions, 7 BP branch migrations. Number 3, recombination / dependent replication. Number 4, excision of the lambda prophage requires excisionase XIS excision repair, regeneration of the 2 attachment sites on phage and bacteria chromosome. And number 5, possible removal of the LAC-Z gene, specialized transduction with the excision of the prophage. As depicted in these hours, the recombinational and excision repair pathways appear to be the same, for the sun god passes over the barrier or land of Sekri in hour 5 and then encounters the prophage Osiris in hour 6 on the same pathway. Because Rosette Ta represents the innermost chambers of DNA where base pairs are present, the region is depicted as zigzag, not only because of the zigzag backbone of the zDNA, but also because thermal fluctuations cause DNA structures to twist, stretch, and bend as strands unwind. Specific base pair sequence lead to bends and kinks in the direction of the helix, which hour 4 and 5 detail. These kinks and bends on the DNA molecule help proteins identify binding sites necessary for replication, transcription, regulation of gene expression, and DNA repair mechanisms. Rosetta is described as the land of Sokar, who is on his sand. Sand or desert signifies a hydrophobic basis, cannot form hydrogen bonds with water, oriented perpendicular to the helix axis. Hour 4 depicts the sun god reaching the hydrophobic interior of the DNA hidden chamber, where a serpent boat for the sand or hydrophobic area is more efficient than one on water or hydrophilic sugar phosphates on the exterior of the DNA molecule. Since the interior bases are hydrophobic, their stacked structures in the center of the molecule shields them from water. However, the thermal denaturation of DNA, the bases are exposed to water and the solubility decreases. Also, the sun god's tow rope in hour 4 suggests the DNA strand, a term used to designate a chromatid or chromosome, each of which contains a DNA duplex. The term is also used at the molecular level to designate a single nucleotide chain of DNA duplex. With this brief review, let's look at chemical reactions in hour 4. In the middle register, the encapsulated ram-headed sun god now sports a disc between his horns, but has no replication fork. So it seems that the sun god is at rest, as indicated by the boat of rest in hour 3 that signifies a stalled replication fork at the prophet's attachment site due to a DNA lesion. Template strand break, a bond protein complex or other barrier such as a thymine dimer. The sun god and his crew are in a boat with serpent heads on the prow and stern, which is dragged by 4 gods, suggesting the 4 lambda integrase molecules, which integrate and exercise lambda DNA into and out of the E. coli host chromosome. The flames emitted by the sun god's boat guide him through these pools where he cannot see forms, yet he cries out to them so they hear his voice. Deities and serpents line both registers. In front of the 4 gods towing the boat is a bearded mummified Osiris form wearing the white crown, the crook of Osiris, the ibis-headed Thoth, and the hawk-headed Horus, with outstretched hands holding the Ukiak. Thoth's title is the Razor, which seems appropriate because Osiris' lambda DNA is rising and Thoth represents RNA polymerase, or perhaps DNA polymerase the 4th. That is active and recombination dependent replication leading to the excision of the prophet. The deity with the 2-pronged object in place of a head suggests divergence, and this is related to the stalled and active replication forks. These deities are the hidden travelers in the hidden place of the duat, that is, the innermost chambers or caverns of DNA where Osiris or lambda genome is lodged. Of interest in upper register is the god Aptuat at number 6, spot number 6, holding a forked scepter or stalled replication fork and standing before the serpent Nahab Ka. At number 5, that bears 2 serpents' heads, one on one end of his long body and a 3rd serpent head on the other. It seems possible that the 2 heads of the serpent Nahab Ka on one end may suggest DNA denaturation, or the separation of 2 strands of DNA as the RNA polymerase moves through the DNA double helix. The 3rd serpent head emerging from the ground or sand signifies the action of some DNA binding protein or bacterial restriction enzymes to cut or edit the DNA. For the symbol is called the one who cuts the way. RVI, as Pentecost relates, the serpent enables the towing of the sun god toward the hidden one or Osiris. This image of Naheb Ka also points to the change in shape brought on by the right-handed BDNA double helix shifting to the thinner, elongated left-handed zDNA conformation that involves flipping the base pairs upside down. Modern biologists have shown that zDNA formation in E. coli is regulated by transcription. However, E. coli RNA polymerase does not transcribe through zDNA. Based on the Egyptian evidence, this work posits that the polymerase 4 or 5 and the REC-A protein transcription result in zDNA formation. Kim established in 1989 have shown that REC-A binds much faster to zDNA than bDNA. However, exactly as to how REC-A poly 4 and zDNA interact must be posed as an outstanding question. Nonetheless, the pharaohs are mapping E. coli reactions in vivo, which is in a living organism, so it appears that the biological role of the zDNA relates to the inverting in DNA molecule for a unique transcription resulting in the recombinant species. Amduat opens the way for the two gods, suggesting Ra and Osiris, and Naheb Ka is the holy way of passage of Rose Ta. The third serpent head is held by a god at place number 4, whose other hand holds a lasso or lariat. In genetics, a lariat is a lasso-shaped intermediate in certain splicing reactions. Lariat structure is the structure of an intron immediately after excision, in which the 5-foot end loops back and forms a 5-foot by 2-foot linkage with another nucleotide. The lariat holding god is facing a headless god named Amduat at place number 3, holding a forked scepter or stalled replication fork. Headlessness represents the lack of penetration and killing power, for the phage head contains all phage sulfur, host range specificity, penetration enzyme, and killing power. Replication at this point is stalled by not only Amduat at the number 6 spot and the serpent Naheb Ka at number 5, indicating DNA denaturation and zDNA potential, but also by the headless god Amduat at number 3, representing stalled replication without DNA denaturation potential. As mentioned, the first stage of landed replication is bidirectional, so these images represent the change to second stage unidirectional rolling circle replication with the excision of the prophet. Once again, as in hour 1, the upper register shows 3 serpents moving side by side at spot number 11, suggesting messenger or ribosomal and transfer RNA. Thus, we have indicators for the chemical reaction of DNA denaturation, zDNA formation, rolling circle replication, and excision of the prophet. The SI states that we meet the guardians of these chambers, and thus, in the upper register, we meet the scorpion, Ankhet, at spot number 10, a large Urachus, and at 9, a god, and at 8, offering 2 eyes to the Uraeus, suggests the whole eye of the both lambda arms under crow control. The Uraeus is a symbol of divinity and royalty, and the walls of Osiris' abode are surmounted by living Urae, whereas the scorpion may represent the many feet of phage progeny. Next is the winged 3-headed serpent at number 7, with 2 pairs of human legs and feet looking towards the sun god. This winged HTH-DNA binding protein with 3 helices represent dsRNA specific adenosine amylase or DRADA, a protein that functions to modify viral RNA genomes. With the formation of zDNA, as denoted by the zigzag corridors, the arrival of DRADA at this precise point is additional evidence that our decoding of imagery is correct. The RNA polymerase plows through the DNA, leaving zDNA in its wake as the editing enzyme DRADA modifies the information. Also, the three-headed DNA binding protein greeting the sun god has the Ankh sign beneath its head, suggesting that it is favorable to the sun god's arrival or active. We can conclude that the liberation offered to the Uraeus and the life sign beneath the three-headed DRADA serpent signify that Osiris is rising and that Crow protein has won the battle for genetic control over CI. Picture of lower register image 20. More evidence for the view that Crow protein has won the battle for genetic control is the second three-headed serpent in spot 20 in the lower register that greets the sun god. Like the lambda repressor CI, the Crow protein has three helices. This three-headed serpent, Nut, is the hidden image of Sakura or Crow, and it has 14 human heads, each head bearing a disc, and 6 stars from budgets drawing from the tomb of Seti I. The tomb of Ramesses VI depicts 14 stars rather than 6, according to Pentecost. The serpent carries the gods for the first 14 days of the month to the Ukiah, which Thoth and Horus carried to it. In other words, the 14 discs represent the protein product of the Crow gene building up to a critical level and then binding to the OR and OL sequences to stop early transcription and commence late transcription. The 14 bearded heads represent production of phage heads with tails. It is also possible that the 14 stars represent phage morphology. The evolutionary adaptive bacteriophage lambda is extremely small, but the morphology can be obtained by electron microscopy. Lavendal and Thomas embedded bacteriophage particles in an electron-sensitive emulsion emulsion, and the passage of the fast electrons emitted during radioactive decay caused the formation of a tract of silver grains. Since the single phage particle acted as a point source, it caused the formation of a star in the emulsion due to the decay of the phosphorus atom. This detecting method is so sensitive that researchers emit and radioactivity of the phage particle emits about 15 disintegrations per month. The number of tracks per star measures the molecular size of emitting source relative to the intact phage particle. The 14 stars, 14 heads, and 14 discs may relate to the protein product of the Crow gene building up at a critical level of phage. Now, at this point, the bidirectional replication forks are stalled. Research shows that the cessation of the DNA replication during SOS results from the collision of replication forks with sites of DNA damage. However, the text and drawings not only indicate the presence of lactose by goddesses and women at 16 through 17 positions and 13 through 14 positions, but they also show that the sun god will not rest for or stall for long. Restart starts with repair, as Hour 5 depicts. So, text from the Ramesses VI. Pentecost uses the introductory text from other versions because it is omitted in RVI. This text states that the towing of Ra is stopped in this cavern called life of forms, suggesting the DNA formation of the lambda genome. The text above the upper register states that Ra is at the mysterious way of Rose at Tar, which Pentecost translates as the gate of passage. Because of the corrupted text, Pentecost uses older versions that reference deities such as she who guards the rising one, which indicates Isis, or the Lak-Z gene where the prophet is large. The god holding two eyes is he who separates the two gods, that is Horus from Seth. But put simply, Horus and Seth are not fighting, which signifies crow protein production, cell lysis, and prophet's excision, or the rising Osiris that causes the birth of the horse lineage and the transfiguration of the deceased god. In the middle register, the sun god, the sun Bok is named, the one who cuts the way. And the four towers of the Bok are named the mysterious one, the one who keeps the Nefert rope, the one who presides the Uat rope, and the one who stretches the rope, the just one. The three names referencing the tow rope of the sun god, the sun Bok, suggests the activity of DNA strand stretching and replication. The name of Udai or Ucha or the Uchach, held by two gods, is Sokeris. The last three gods and goddesses in this register are called living image, or he who conducts life, the one who brings the distant one, the one who commands, and the lady of life, which again indicates Isis and the lactose nutrient medium, Lak-Z. The major portion of phage protein is derived from the nutrient medium, that is Isis, the lady of lactose provisions, with the sun Bok cutting away at the prophet's site. The activity is the precise break/joins events involved in the 7 BP branch migration. The distant one is Horus, at the meaning of his name denotes it. In the lower register, the name of the elongated serpent at 12 or conchometer is the boat. In the boat is moving radiance. The diagram of the three-headed serpent at 20 or crow protein with its 14 discs above 14 heads is very similar to the budget's depiction from Seti I, with the exception that there are 14 stars under the heads. This serpent is called the Shaker, the mysterious image in which light is evident at the Capri. Shaking indicates the displacement of atoms in the chemical reaction, as does the sistrum. In hour 2, the lower register text mentions that Anubis enters the mysterious road to him who hides the body of Osiris. The passage doors are called knife which joins the earth, knife of him who sees the earth, and knife of eternity, indicating once again the cleavage activity related to site-specific recombination dependent excision of the prophet Osiris. Finally, the last goddess at 22 is named Truth, or Ma'at, that is rightful order. Alright, here's the matrix number 2 for the amduat hour number 4. Take a quick look at this. When we pick back up, we'll be on hour 5. Hopefully we can get hour 6 in that, but at least hour 5 will be next. So until then, peace kings, peace queens.